Life in a Fishbowl by Matthew Putman, former Residence Director, Texas Tech. Don't be alarmed, but I think they're watching you. Not just when you're walking your rounds, not just when you're in the building, not just when you're confronting a situation. They're watching you wherever you go. And they are not only your residents, but most likely every student on campus. Doesn't seem very likely, does it? But the truth of the matter is that when you accepted your position, you entered into the fishbowl. And whether you're an RA, an ATM, or the President of the United States, once you enter the fishbowl, everyone thinks that everything you do is his or her business. The worst part about the fishbowl is that you can't escape it. Whether you're in class, spending time with your friends around campus, at the movies, or running errands around town, especially if your university is in a smaller city, someone is going to see you as John or Jane Doe, the RA, or ATM. The downside is that you never know when someone is going to see you do something that will damage your credibility. It could be as simple as inadvertently dropping a piece of trash on the ground, or being overheard saying something that, taken out of context or not, is construed as offensive. Now that you're beginning to see watchers around every corner, how do you survive the fishbowl? I always remember something my mom told me when I was growing up. She said, "This is a small town. Your great-grandparents and your grandparents have lived here for years. Your dad and I grew up here and graduated from high school here. So think about what you're doing, and don't be surprised if we found out you've caused some kind of trouble, because you're bound to be recognized by someone we know." Needless to say, I was on my best behavior all during high school, at least in public, but as extreme as that example may be, the key to success in the fishbowl is to think about what you're doing. No one expects you to be a saint, but you'll avoid a great deal of trouble if you stay aware of how your actions might be interpreted. You won't always know if someone with a campus connection is observing you, but if you ask yourself, how would I feel if my residents or supervisor saw me doing this? You'll have a good gauge of what might cause you trouble down the road. You'll also need to take care of yourself. You're going to be in the fishbowl 24/7, so it's going to be important to monitor your stress level. Do some of your homework in the library or another favorite quiet spot on campus. Maintain your support network and spend time with people who know you as an individual and not as a staff member. But before you start considering other jobs on campus, there's also an upside to the fishbowl. Your position gives you a tremendous opportunity to be both a role model and an advocate on your campus. Other students will see your involvement on campus as behavior worth emulating, especially if you seem to be enjoying your college experience. Not only that, but everything you say from within the fishbowl takes on a greater significance. If there's a pressing issue on your campus, or you're speaking out against bigotry or discrimination, your voice will carry more weight with your fellow students because of your position. The fishbowl is a tremendous responsibility, but it can also be one of the most rewarding experiences of your college career. How you choose to view and utilize your increased visibility on campus will be one of the most important decisions you will make as a Residence Life staff member. The previous was an article from ResLife.net written by a Residence Life professional illustrating the importance of your responsibility as a role model. You now represent the Office of Residential Community Life and every other RA and ATM on campus. If you make a poor or questionable choice, that will reflect on your peers. Choosing to go above and beyond and be an exemplary student leader will also reflect on the rest of your staff. It is important to hold yourself and each other accountable so we can all better work toward our goal of serving students. Before we move into some examples, let's talk about language. Language can be a powerful tool that can equally help or hurt your interactions with your residents. Here are some examples. As we go through the following scenes, please know that it's okay to make mistakes. As supervisors, your RDs only expect you to be honest, apologize, and learn from it. The true test of integrity is what happens after the mistake and how you respond to it. As a student staff member, entering into a relationship with a resident can be tricky. You are a leader in your building. In an upperclassmen building, this can be hard to avoid since you may have a friend or a significant other living in the building that you're hired into, but you have to be very careful with this situation. If you have a friend or significant other living in the building, you should inform your RD immediately to make an action strategy. They will likely ask you to employ different strategies in performing your duties where this person is involved. This does not mean that you should not address any policy violations or health and safety issues that arise with that individual, but if you have the opportunity to have another staff member take the lead on that, it might be better for both parties. You should make your friend or significant other aware that even though you have a relationship, you will still uphold the responsibilities of your job. If they are a true friend or loved one, then they will not put you in a difficult position regarding this. Be aware of the fishbowl. If the residents of the building know that you have a special relationship with that one resident, and that person is doing something they aren't supposed to be, whether you know about it or not, it could be viewed as you not doing your job. You need to make sure that you set clear boundaries with these individuals, and you need to keep your supervisor informed. If at all possible, you should avoid starting new romantic relationships with your residents once you become an RA. If something does happen, keep your supervisor informed. To the same degree, if the relationship should end, you will still have to be professional to this resident. You spend a lot of time with your staff. It's understandable that relationships may develop past a certain point. Again, if possible, you should avoid this, but if something does develop and you find yourself in a romantic relationship with another staff member, you should inform your supervisor as soon as possible to work out an action strategy on how to continue to work together effectively and not allow your relationship to interfere. There should also be considerations made to what should happen if you were to break up. You will still have to work together. A breakup is not a reason for a building transfer. We also do not want to create a hostile environment with the staff. So you're over 21 and an RA. You want to go out and have a good time. That's understandable. But what happens when you see a resident while you're out? They could be over 21 or under 21. It's an awkward encounter either way. Remember that you're viewed as an RA or ATM even outside of campus, so be aware of how you look to others. If you are making questionable or poor choices, that could affect how people view you. If they are making questionable or poor choices, they may be embarrassed or worried about getting in trouble. The best advice we can give is that if you're in a place where underage drinking is taking place, you should leave. Going out and drinking with residents is not a responsible RA or ATM behavior, no matter what age. Whether you're out or returning to the building, you should always be aware of your image. Stumbling into the building late at night will cause more problems with residents, staff, and your RD. Just be aware of your role model behavior at all times, and don't forget about the fishbowl. As an RA and ATM, you will be informed of building issues and confidential information. You should never discuss this information in a public area like the office, in a hallway, or at the dining hall where students can overhear. You should also not be gossiping about incidents or residents. Keeping our residents' privacy is of the utmost importance. If you need to discuss something, keep names, room numbers, and even buildings out of it. Take it into your room or a private area and keep your voice down. Being an RA or an ATM does not exclude you from following the residence hall license. RAs and ATMs have to follow all campus policies just like any other student. You need to keep your room professional and follow all fire codes and policies yourself. It's not fair to ask residents to be doing something that you aren't. Having access to the building keys is an important responsibility. If the resident of that room is not standing next to you and asking you to open the room, or the RD is not asking you to go into a room, then you should not be using these keys. You should never be giving out keys to any residents. Misuse of keys can result in the loss of your job. If, at the end of a program, you have leftover food that is unopened and has a longer expiration date, these supplies should be put back in the cage, and you should inform your RD so they can be used for another program. If the supplies are open, then try giving them away to residents or leaving them at the cage to be used up by residents. You shouldn't take any unopened or unused supplies to your rooms for personal use or allow another staff member to do the same. These supplies were bought with funds from the students and should be used for the benefit of the students, not yourself. Be aware of your social media footprint. It's your decision on whether or not to friend your residents, but if you do, you should be very careful about your postings. Postings venting about your job are inappropriate. Be aware of inappropriate pictures that you could be posting as well. This goes for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, or any other social media venue. You might also be aware of what your residents are posting. If you see anything that indicates a clear policy violation or a danger to the student or others, you are a mandated reporter and should report it to your RD. While it is your decision, be careful of giving your residents your personal phone number. Once you give it out, you can't take it back, and they may call you or text you for any number of things at any time of the day or night. This is why you have a phone in your room. In the next ethical decision that you face as a role model, consider the following passage from a speech at Wells College by former vice presidential candidate Geraldine Ferraro. Ethics does not boil down to a matter of black or white, legal and illegal. Too often, our current debate centers on spelling out the limits on conduct. What are the exact rules, and how far can you push them? What can you do and still get away with it? When you think that way, dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's, it's easy to fall into the same kind of thought that creates abuses in the first place. This preoccupation with what's allowed, that is, the bare minimum you can do in a job and still squeak by, misses the point. What we need is not just a set of limits on behavior, but a different attitude. Let us strive instead for what I call positive ethics. That means living up to certain standards not because you have to, but because you want to. Positive ethics means concentrating a little less on what we must prevent and a little more on what we want to accomplish.